Welcome to the Fourth Branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening.
Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch program. Welcome. Today we have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. We will take a look back at this topic that's been raging in Washington, anti-Semitism. We will also continue the conversation that we've been having for the past few months, which is the race relations in America. And of course, there is the road to 2020 with debates raging across the country. Individuals who want to unseat Donald Trump from the presidency. We will take a look back at some of a few items such as climate change. Is Judge Ellis compromised? And Fox Network, is it a propaganda machine for the Trump administration? Or is it just a misplaced network organization? That and many more when we come back. You are on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. We'll be right back. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracies. Stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome to the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. If you're here for the first time, once again, welcome. I would, before we begin, I would strongly encourage you to visit the People Branch YouTube channel, which is where we have archived all the previous episodes and conversation and topics that we discuss here that are archived on that particular channel. There you will be able to take a look at whatever topic you would be most interested in. And while you're there, I would encourage you to subscribe to the People Branch YouTube channel and follow me on Twitter and on Facebook. And this way we can keep you abreast of updates and also other activities that we may have. Now, there is no lack of crisis in the country. Now, the difference between today and past administration You may recall that the United States has gone through a lot of tumultuous time, and because of different things that happen at different period in time in different parts of the world. But since 2017, January of 2017, most, if not all, most of the crisis that the country has been going through, not caused by some external factors, not caused by some foreign government, but rather by the individual, the President of the United States, the individual whose primary job is to help get rid of, is to help find a solution for problem. Now that is a big difference between all past administration and this current administration. This is a conversation we had with many different people, especially those in the Republican Party, but more specifically individuals who have supported Donald Trump. Which means we as a country going through a crisis that is caused by the individual who is supposed to help stave off crisis and solve crisis. As such, we approach the first one, which is Judge Ellis compromised? Now, what does that mean? Now, if you haven't been kept abreast as to what's going on in the country, last week, Judge Ellis handed what everyone called the most shocking surprise, not just to people who were expecting Paul Manafort to serve a long time in jail, but even to the president himself, even to Paul Manafort himself, to his lawyers. That was a shocking surprise. The surprise was that anybody who's been following this thread of scandal, which is linked to the Trump campaign, the 2016 Trump campaign, know that Paul Manafort has been in the middle of the whole thing. He was Trump's former campaign manager. It so happened he had a rap sheet of wrongdoing, not only here in the United States but across the world. He's cozied up with dictators, he's cozied up with authoritarian, and he has been doing nothing that you would consider for you or anyone to use that individual as a role model for your children. Now, he was caught in Mueller's net during the time. Mueller's is the special counsel tasked to investigate whether there is any collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. And of course, Manafort being the individual at the center of that, in addition to Donald Trump, he was caught. Now, there is no lack of evidence against Paul Manafort. The judge is in possession of all those evidences, is in all the documents that show in great detail as to what Paul Manafort has done. By any definition, Paul Manafort is a professional and career criminal. But Judge Ellis handed a 4-year sentence to Paul Manafort because he found that besides what he's been accused of, he's otherwise live a blameless life. Now, there was no word to explain this type of behavior from a judge. And we already analyzed in the past that we remove the possibility that Judge Ellis is stupid, because we talk about his credential. So he's not a stupid individual. We also talk about the fact that Judge Ellis had a similar case in front of him in 2009, which is William Jefferson. That's a gentleman who was a congressman in Louisiana, and he was caught doing money laundering, racketeering, and even collaborating to some extent with the government of Nigeria bribe money, so to speak. Now, Judge Ellis was the individual who handed the verdict on William Jefferson. William Jefferson got 13 years. Now, when we compare what William Jefferson's life, we compare his life with Paul Manafort, and we compare what he did with Paul Manafort, William Jefferson would be considered a saint, literally speaking. Now, crime is crime, don't get me wrong, because it doesn't matter, you cannot justify letting someone off the hook because you say, well, his crime is much less than that other individual crime, because everyone ought to be punished for his or her crime. Otherwise, you encourage the individual to continue. Now, Judge Ellis handed William Jefferson 13 years. Now, by any analysis, that was fair for the crime that he committed. But what is shocking today for everyone that's been watching is the fact that Paul Manafort would be considered grandfather of William Jefferson when it comes to committing crime, to wrongdoing. And he is walking away with just 4 years. Now, this is not just a surprise, because there is a difference between being surprised and being shocked. Now, for someone who's familiar with a situation like Manafort, there is only one possible conclusion, one possible logical conclusion to what Judge Ellis did. He is compromised. Now, we do not have, as we explained last time, any way of proving that he is, but we are investigating that very fact because we are fairly certain from a logical perspective there is no other explanation for what Judge Ellison did, because we, the public, we have enough information to know that Paul Manafort could not possibly walk away with 10-15 years in jail, and Judge Ellison is actually in possession of even more information, more damning information. So for Judge Ellison to hand 4 years to Manafort, we know something is not right here. So it is not something that we can just leave alone and move on, because when someone commits a crime, especially someone like Manafort, he didn't just commit crime, he committed crime which end up damaging our country. So Paul Manafort ought to spend more time in jail for the crime he's committed. So Judge Ellis, we honor to you. So if you have anything that you're hiding, it is not safe for you to sleep with both eyes closed, because we know something is not right, and we will find that out and we will air it out, because what just happened is a clear sign that Judge Ellis has compromised his position and is probably doing favor to Donald Trump. We'll be right back. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. The Democrat Party, of course, that's the road to 2020, but we're here to simply make a point about one of the topic that we decided we should talk about, which is Fox. Is Fox a propaganda machine? Now, the Democrat Party has, well, the chairman decided that Fox will not be included in those networks which will host or whose anchorman will host one of the primaries for the Democrat Party. And since after that announcement, there has been a lot of conversation both at Fox and elsewhere as to whether the Democrat Party should reverse course and include Fox. Now, just earlier, I was having a back and forth conversation with someone who say they should include Fox because if not, it will it's an issue that will continue on between the two parties. Now, everybody has, in fact, one of the individuals who mentioned that they should include Fox is a Democrat congressman. Now, I responded that the Democrat congressman is free to have his own opinion. But in life, you cannot reward someone for doing something wrong. That's as simple as that. If you have a child and the child does something wrong, you cannot give the child what the child is after, because what's the point? Because otherwise you would tell the child you can continue doing what's wrong because there is no punishment. So what exactly would we be teaching by telling Fox that you can continue? Fox has called itself Fox News. That's what Fox is, Fox News. However, we all know, even before there was the report by the New York Times that clearly shows from the time that Trump was during the primaries, during the general election, that Fox has been literally an arm for the Trump administration. Before there was even the 2016 election, during the campaign, Fox decided to become the mouthpiece for Trump camp. Now, there is a big difference between being a supporter of and being a mouthpiece of. Because if you go to North Korea, you go to Iran, you go to Russia, you'll find that there are state networks, state-sponsored networks. In other words, you would be hard-pressed to find something that's said that's wrong, that's about the government, that's bad about the government, that's negative about the government, because that's what happened in countries where we have dictators, where we have authoritarian. Now, there is even the story that came out that Fox, a decision was made at Fox not to publish a piece of information that was detrimental to Trump during the campaign that had to do with Stormy Daniels. Fox was in possession of that piece of information, but in order to prevent Trump from being damaged, they killed that story. By the way, this is a piece of information that came to us via someone who used to work for Fox. In fact, that individual was the individual who had the information in her possession, and Fox say, no, we're not going to do it. So Fox cannot continue. Now, Fox can be a broadcasting network. Fox can continue to entertain people, but the word news cannot be associated with Fox as it stands today. Or if Fox wants to continue to call itself news, it can call itself the Fox Trump News Administration Network. Now, if they make it certain that everybody understands that information that comes out of Fox is for Trump, is to support Trump, then everybody knows exactly what they're getting. But as it stands today, it is deceiving. Now, you may recall that every so often, there is an announcement right here on the Fourth Branch program, during which we tell you that what really constitutes a very big threat to our democracy is ignorance. Now, by watching Fox, we know that's what its audience gets. Nothing that's true, because all they do is Fox is considered an echo chamber for Donald Trump administration. So as you can see, that Donald Trump and everybody in his administration, in fact, most Republicans, when they want to say something and not being challenged, where do they go? They go on Fox. And there is a reason for that. Now, while it may help you, if you like Fox, it may help your ego, it may help your fragile emotion, but for the sake of the country, it is detrimental, because when people are getting dumber and dumber, that's not good for the country, that's not good for the future generation. So yes, I wholeheartedly support this decision by the DNC chair that Fox should not be included to host any debate for the Democrat Party. We'll be right back.
In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore.
There is no lack of crisis in the nation. One such was actually not caused, drum roll, by Donald Trump. Yes, interestingly enough, there is a crisis that I don't know if I should call it crisis, but since we already used the word, then we'll go on with that. It's a debate about anti-Semitism. Now, this debate comes about because of a tweet it started with a tweet from Representative Ilhan Omar. Now, Ilhan Omar is a congresswoman who represents the 5th district in the state of Minnesota. She is one of 2 women who shocked the nation in the 2018 midterm election. Now, the diversity in the body called Congress, especially in the Democrat Party, is very good for the country, because one of the biggest problem we've noticed in the country is it's been almost a standard that we know who's going to win the election. We know who's going to stay, we know who's going to leave, and we know who's going to come to Washington. And the reason is because it's almost like it's you know, a rig match, like in wrestling, for instance. You know, it's already preset who ought to win, who ought to lose. That's the way that it feels with Washington, and that's the reason that the country is in the predicament it is today. Now, I don't want to sidetrack with the conversation. Mrs. Omar, during a conversation that she had with Glenn Greenwald, and I believe she said something that today is, well, construed or translated as anti-Semitic. Now, Mrs. Omar, as I just mentioned, is a Muslim, so she's sensitive to the other side of the coin, which means people, just for those, when you hear the word anti-Semitism, it simply means hatred for the Jew. I guess we'll call it deep hatred for the Jews. Now, we do have the other side of the coin, and Mrs. Omar is on that side of the coin, which is hatred for Muslim. So there is just like there is anti-Semitism widespread in some parts of the world. Now, the United States is, I'm certain, has this problem as well, just like we have racism in the country, but it's not really as widespread here in the United States as it used to be in a couple of centuries ago. But nevertheless, it is in the country. So is Islamophobia. Islamophobia, of course, it's fear of, well, Islam, the Muslim people. You may recall that after 9/11, it got worse. But this is not really what triggered this whole thing. What triggered is the fact that Mrs. Omar, as a Muslim woman, knows the story about between Israel and people in the Middle East. Now, she was not trying to defend Arab or Muslim. What she was trying to say is that her job is not to have or show allegiance or pledge allegiance or support to a foreign country. Her job is to represent the people in the 5th district in the state of Minnesota. So far, no matter how much you may hate Muslim individual, how much you may not like Mrs. Omar, that statement, there is nothing anti-Semitic about the statement. Now, the conversation didn't stay there. There is a whole thread on Twitter about the back and forth between Mrs. Omar and that journalist, as well as other people who chime in. And one of the things that she said, and I believe which triggered this whole conversation, is the fact that she said to something to the effect between during the conversation that the reason, and now I'm adding that part, but because it was already mentioned by someone who want to show support for Israel and so on and so forth. And Mrs. Omar made the statement that it's all about the Benjamin. Now, the context was that she said that there are a lot of lobbying groups Jewish lobbying group who get so much support from the representative in Washington, and the reason is because they get a lot of campaign finance money, so they provide support to Jews. Now, I must say that I am somewhat confused because the statement itself addresses an issue that we all know is true, that there is a lot of lobbying in Washington, and there is no exception as to who does the lobbying. Even enemies have people here in the United States representing their interests lobbying in Washington. So Mrs. Omardian said anything, at least in my view, that sounds anti-Semitic. And that's where I start getting an understanding that maybe every time one says something that's not flattery, something that's not positive towards Israel or any Jewish group, it is anti-Semitic. And now we have to have this conversation. What is not anti-Semitic? For instance, does calling for Israel to answer for its crime during fight with the Palestinian anti-Semitic? Well, Israel has called it anti-Semitic. You may not recall, but in the summer of 2014, there was a fierce fight between Israel and the fighters in Palestine. And Israel deliberately, knowingly bombed a civilian location. I already talked about that. If you want to find out, please refer to the previous video. Yes, deliberately, knowingly bomb a civilian location. We know that it was deliberate. We know that it wasn't a mistake. It's because the UN at that time was on the ground, had crews on the ground, and they warned Israel 18 times. Yes, 18 times before Israel dropped a bomb on that location. So yes, we know it's deliberately that Israel bombed civilians. Now, is it anti-Semitic to call for Israel to answer for its crime? But it so happened when United Nations called for Israel to answer for its crime, guess what? Israel called anti-Semitic. Just last year, Israel killed 138 civilians, 35 of them were children. Now, when called to answer for its crime, Israel raised the flag, anti-Semitism flag. So yes, there is a problem. Now, we left Mrs. Omar behind. Now we go to a different aspect of the conversation. The United States has been provided support for Israel, and there is nothing wrong with that. There are Jewish lobbyists in Washington, Jewish organizations, which do a lot of lobbying in Washington. Now, we know that we cannot single them out because they're not the only one, and there are plenty of other lobbying groups. So if we want to put an end to lobbying in general, so yes, there will be part of the process. But as it stands today, we cannot go after a particular lobbying group. But what Mrs. Omar was trying to say when they were pressuring her to support I guess legislation, or to support to support any kind of bill that come to the floor that may benefit Israel. Now, she most likely will not, because she already took the position that her job is not to support a foreign country, and she has every reason to feel that way. And feeling that way doesn't make her someone who hates Israel. It's simply an individual, just like, for instance, I'll give you a good example. Marco Rubio was very much against what Obama did in regards to Cuba. He voted against it. Now, if you were to remove Cuba instead and then put Israel, then you would say that Marco Rubio is anti-Semitic. So yes, people have reason not to want certain things because of their sentiment, because of their background. So Marco Rubio is from Cuba, is Hispanic, so things that relate to Hispanics or an Hispanic country, then he's very sensitive to that. Now, nobody said anything about Marco Rubio being whatever that term would be. Now, we must recognize that the United States is also an accomplice in committing crimes, because when Israel deliberately kills civilians and the United States shields Israel from answering for its crime, United States becomes an accomplice in the crime. And for the world community to call for Israel to answer for its crime, it is not anti-Semitic. Now, because I'm not a Jew, so obviously I'm sure that there are plenty of expression, plenty of code words that may be hurtful to Jews. Just like people who are racist, they would say certain things that would hurt blacks. So I understand that. But no matter what that is, we cannot pour our anger on Mrs. Omar for taking the position that her job is to represent the 5th district in the state of Minnesota. And she has every right not to want to support, whether it's a legislation, a bill, or whatever it is. And if it is in support of Israel, she has every reason not to want to support that. So what we will be doing, and which is a good thing, that we now have a more diverse group in Congress, especially in the Democrat Party, because it will open the opportunity to talk about issues that in the past were just swept to the side because nobody wanted to talk about them. Now, it is not a support, it is not a condemnation, it's not a support for or a condemnation of Mrs. Omar. But it is good that this conversation come to the surface. So from this point forward, we're going to talk about various aspects of what Israel has been up to since its existence in 1945. We wrote about that. We published a documentary about that very aspect of the problem in the Middle East. So, and we also wrote quite a few articles to that effect. So we will take the opportunity to continue the conversation about not just anti-Semitism, but also about the behavior of the state of Israel towards the Palestinian in general, but the Arab world in particular. We'll be right back. I am MD, host of the 4th Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The 4th Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the 4th Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. Do you know why we don't have dinosaurs around anymore? By any chance? Any idea? Want to guess? Well, there is one thing, at least was one thing, that the dinosaurs didn't have that we do. Not only we have the understanding of how the world from a climate perspective is changing, but most importantly, we can do something about it. Well, the dinosaur weren't so lucky. We only see dinosaur or their fossil in museum, and we watch movie that kind of give us a sense how big those animals were. And we imagine if they were here today, then we human would have serious problem. Now, maybe Mother Nature has a way of taking care of those things as time change. But this is not the reason that I brought that conversation to the surface. Dinosaur doesn't roam our planet anymore is because there were some very drastic changes in our planet, mostly due to some to planetary changes, some due to climate in right here, earthquake, floods, and so on. Now, the dinosaurs were very huge animal. They could not run fast. And if there is a hole into which that they fell, chances are they would not be able to get out of it, and they would most likely die there. Die of hunger. Obviously, they're huge animal. They need a lot of food. Well, the point of the conversation is the changes in climate, a lot of earthquake, a lot of flood, put an end to those animals. See how big they were, and yet they still disappear from the face of the planet. So it is usually mind-boggling to me whenever the conversation about climate change comes, and for whatever reason, Republican legislators, the elite, usually stand against anything from being done in order to prevent us, the human species, from falling into the same problem as the dinosaur. Now, you may not believe, or you may not care, or you may think it's not an issue that you should care about at all. You may live your life as if, hey, I'm not going to be around when if something major happened to the climate. And that's one of the reasons that Republican legislators, they completely are against anything being done. Now, the dinosaur, we could say that they didn't have any way of preventing their decimation. They had no way of doing that. They have no way of knowing that there were going to be some major changes in the climate. But even if they did, they would have had no way of preventing or preparing for it. And that's where sometimes I try to understand, why would someone choose the ignorant path? Why would someone choose to be that selfish? Because yes, I understand it's not going to happen overnight. We may have a few generations before we suffer the consequences of what's going on. But what I don't understand is the fact that we have all the proofs here. It's not just people talking about climate change. All the proofs that things have changed, and not for the better, but for reasons that so far impossible to understand, that Republicans Republican in general, they stand in the way of doing anything. Of course, we cannot reverse the process, because if it's already started, there is no way we can reverse the process. But we can slow it down. We can adjust our behavior in order for us to leave a place for our children and our grandchildren. At the very least, we could do that. So, if you are a concerned citizen, keep in mind that your representatives have been lying to you by telling you there is no climate change. Now, I heard Donald Trump mention that 1,000 times, and millions of his followers seems to believe what he says, and they cheer at what he says. Let me say this as bluntly as I can. Donald Trump is an ignorant individual. And the last time I seen, I never seen any progress being made by individuals who are, one, ignorant, and an individual who follow another ignorant individual. A blind cannot lead the blind. The Bible tells us so. If you are blind, you cannot lead another blind individual. And if you are a blind individual, you should not follow another blind individual. You both will fall in a hole. That's what the Bible says. As it stands on climate change, Donald Trump is an ignorant individual, and he should not be followed for any reason. Because the end to it is this: the human species will go in the way of the dinosaur.
Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watch powerless the destruction of a country which was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question?
Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our only business is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it. War on Blacks. Now, this is a venue in which we discuss race relation in America. We have been debating this particular topic for the past couple of months. Now, if you join us for the first time on this discussion, welcome. And I should also point to you that you should visit the People Branch YouTube channel. That's the People Branch YouTube channel, in which you will find that we have a number of video already created around this very topic. Now, this is the step-by-step on how to get to the People Branch YouTube channel. And once you get there, you can search for race relation, institutionalized racism, or war on blacks. This is the banners or the expression under which you will find the discussion of this particular topic. And while you're there, do remember to subscribe to this channel in order to receive invites, in order to receive updates and all the activities we are involved in. Now, war on blacks is a expression we use to point to a set of facts, casualties. Now, we have taken a trip to the past. More specifically, we went to the period of slavery to understand the dynamic, the relations, the interaction between blacks and whites. And we have walked our way all the way to the end of Civil War. And we have asked the question, what happened to blacks after the Civil War? And thus far, we have been looking at various scenarios that give us a way of connecting the past with the present. Now, at the bottom of the Civil War, we left behind casualties, almost 1 million people during the Civil War, dead and wounded, caused by a group of people in the country, in the United States of America, people who did not have the decency, people who did not understand that enslave others, wrong. They not only did not understand that, but when they were presented with opportunities to have their eyes open, to end this process, they decided to fight. They decided to fight to the death. They decided to put their lives on the line to keep slavery around. Now, those are individuals who call themselves Christian, who believe they were Christian. Today, we again have individuals who still believe they are Christian, individuals who believe they are Christian, but whose action tell us that not even the devil would want to be friends with those individuals because of the kind of things that they do. Now, at the bottom of the bridge, we said something happened. The slaves were free. Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Act, which proclaimed that officially no more slaves. That was great. One individual, a president of the United States, saw that was the right thing to do. And at the cost of his presidency, he decided that was the right thing to do. Just like we have individuals in the Republican Party today that go the wrong way and that decide they're going to stay on that path no matter what. History repeats itself, doesn't it? During slavery time, we had that too. Davis Jefferson was a senator. In fact, instead of choosing to do the right thing, to be on the right side of history, he placed himself as the individual who would be the president of that country they wish to form, that would allow or continue to make certain that slavery stayed. So this is nothing new in the United States of America, that you have individuals that you think have a brand, that they can use that brand for good. No, that's not what they do. Not only they did what's wrong, that's what Jefferson Davis did. Not only those individuals do what's wrong, but they drag their constituent to support them. And that is a serious problem for the United States of America. Because we're not talking about people who just decide to do wrong and do it on his own. But they drag other individuals with them. Now, that doesn't exonerate those people who blindly follow those senators, those congressmen that are doing the wrong thing. Because they are adult, they were also doted with a brand. If they only use that brand, they can clearly see that the individual that they elected are taking them in the wrong path, and they should stop that. For instance, get rid of that individual. Today, we introduce another aspect of this conversation of the war on blacks. And it is known in the form of, well, the prison industry. What is that? Now, every country has a system of incarcerating, to incarcerate people who have done bad to society, who have done something wrong to society, something considered a threat to society, someone who is considered a threat, a nuisance to society. The system of justice that we have would do everything possible in order to protect the rest of the country. The remaining citizen, the one who abide by the law, the one who respect the law, ought to be protected. As such, every country, civilized country, would have a way to get those who cannot grasp that concept and put them away. Maybe that would help them. Now, there is a whole series of problem with our prison system as well, but this is not the conversation today. This is not the conversation we will engage in. The conversation about the prison industry is to introduce an aspect of what happens to blacks after the Civil War ended. What happened to blacks? Now, we like to simplify things. That's how we live. We do not want things to be complicated. Here in the United States in particular, it's mostly so because we always on the move. We want things fast. That's why you see so many fast food restaurants everywhere you go, because we don't have time. we want things just like this. Now, not only we have those fast food restaurants, but now they added to the concept, you don't just go to fast food restaurant, you drive. You just go to a drive-through. That's how much we just cannot, we don't have time. We just want to be on the move. So as such, in order to understand, we're going to try to simplify for you what happens to blacks after the Civil War. Because there is really a widespread lack of understanding, knowledge, widespread ignorance in the country. That's both from blacks and whites. And that makes addressing the issue of race relation requires that we also address different issues that connect, that complicates, I should say, the problem of race relation. Because unless you understand all the different components, then solving race relation will stay complex, and we will not be able to do what we set out to do, which is eradicate racism in America. So today, we introduce you to the prison industry, and as time goes by, we will delve into various aspects of that so that you can start getting an understanding of those individuals. Although we will address people in prison in general, but we will focus mostly on blacks, because that's what we need to understand in order to address the problem of race relation in America.
Hi, I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program. War on Blacks is a topic added to the Fourth Branch programming in order to discuss the intricacies, the complexities of race relation in America. The goal is threefold. 1. To bring attention to the various forms of prejudice, discrimination, and racism in the country. 2. To expose the undeniable presence of such in every aspect of life and every corner of our society. 3. To extricate us all from the ignorance, the indifference, or the complicity. The ultimate objective is to make the discussions of those issues, racism, prejudice, discrimination, a normal part of our lives. Then, and only then, will we as a society be able to eradicate the problem. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Abraham Joshua Heschel exclaimed, "Racism is man's gravest threat to man, the maximum of hatred for the minimum of reason." Join me in the journey to restore equality. Or would you please get out of the way? Thank you.
Hello again. The road to 2020. Well, as we getting ready to unseat the current president of the United States from the Oval Office, that's what the road to 2020 is. We have a growing list of Democrats, candidates for the presidency of the United States, who want to become the next president. Now, 2020 is a very important time for all of us to reflect on what has been going on since 2017. No one in his or her right mind can say with a straight face that we would be okay with another term of the current president. He has divided the country from very onset. In fact, if you remember, since Donald Trump began his campaign in 2016, he started with very divisive language. And to everybody's surprise, there are enough people in the country who seems to be okay with that. Now, if you've been watching this program, you will know that I do not mince words. I call the devil by its name. As far as I am concerned, people who actually voted for Donald Trump, those people did not vote because they were smart. Now, I got engaged in conversation with a number of people who flaunt their degree to show me that they know dummy, because, well, they had a good college education. So we cannot really call those people dummy, can we? Well, a good college education is necessary in life, but as I pointed out several times before, that a PhD doesn't make an individual a smart individual. It simply signifies that you have knowledge in some aspect of whatever that matter, that material is. If you've been watching this program, you should be aware that we did have a series of videos that we created that address that very issue under the banner of "Are Republicans Dumber Than Democrats?" Well, the short answer, you should definitely go to People Branch YouTube channel and check it out, because it is important to understand where you are at in life, if you want to change it. Now, everybody in his or her right mind would say without any hesitation that we do have a problem in the country. At the top of the program, we mentioned that the country is in crisis. And it is a predicament we're in, not because of any enemy, but rather because the current president of the United States puts the country in this predicament. Never happened before. It is the current administration that puts us in the predicament we're in. Now, a couple of things that start happening and we ought to bring to your attention. Republicans in general have always resorted to a tactic of scare and fear and scaring people in order to get their votes, in order to rally support. And I don't say that for the sake of saying that. You can look at many examples that in a not too distant past, right here during the current administration, we have had Republicans using exactly that kind of tactic to rally support. Now, today, what is going on is Donald Trump is out telling the constituent that Democrats hate Jews. Now, Donald Trump is not alone. You may recall that there is already a growing sound in the background of Republicans claiming that voting for Democrat would turn the country into socialism. There is no lack of example that Republicans cannot provide any solution to any problem, so they resort to scare tactic in order to make certain that they do not lose their constituent. Now, in a country where constituents are smart, they're able to see through, that would not be a problem, because they would simply reject whatever scare tactic that Republicans have used. But unfortunately, we saw the outcome of that. In 2016, Donald Trump did exactly that. He used scare tactic to get people to vote for him. He's going to build a wall to prevent rapists from coming across from Mexico. What a campaign slogan. And to the surprise of the rest of the country, there are enough people in this country who are gullible. There are enough people in this country who are naive, not only to believe that, but also to act on it. Because Donald Trump sits in the Oval Office because there were enough people who believe that the message, the scare tactic, is the way to go. But Donald Trump is not alone, as I mentioned earlier, because you have today an army of Republicans crisscrossing the country to tell you that Democrats will turn the country into a socialist country. Every time I hear that, it's... And the only reason that they continue to say that, by the way, it's because, well, they believe they will be successful. They have been in the past. They have been successful in the past. Again, that's the reason Donald Trump sits in the Oval Office. Yep, that building behind me. Now, it's one thing that politicians lie to you. It's one thing that politicians try to deceive the constituent. But it's always baffling that you would have millions of individuals who cannot think and realize that they've been lied to. That is a serious problem for the country. That office, the Oval Office, has been vilified, has been trashed, its importance completely irrelevant, because the person who is in the Oval Office should not have been there, is not worth being in the Oval Office. So the road to 2020 should not be just another presidential race. It cannot be. It should not be. As the Democrats battle themselves out, they should remember that they cannot be another Donald Trump. The country realized that Donald Trump should not have been president. He doesn't have anything to offer. But what makes the situation, the predicament, even grim is the fact that we have legislators, Republican legislators, who, like in the past, choose to go on the wrong path and drag their constituent along with them. Yes, you will always have that, because as far as those legislators are concerned, the country is not their priority. Yeah, they can tell you they love the country. Of course they do. They love the country. It's easy to say. Anybody can say that. Words without actions worth absolutely nothing. And the reason they can tell you anything is because they know you'll buy it. You have in the past. In fact, not too much of a distant past either, that Republicans came to you and they say, we're going to give you a tax cut. They lied to you because the money didn't go to you, come to you. So 2020 is a time for us, not just the politician that want to unseat Donald Trump, but for us, American citizen, to go to vote to restore decency in the presidency. Because today, we cannot point to Donald Trump as a role model for our children. We cannot. Nobody can. Even those people who voted for Donald Trump cannot possibly use Donald Trump as a role model for their children. As such, we know that was a bad choice. So let us get involved, stay involved in what's going on. Because for 2020 cannot be a repeat of 2016. The country deserves someone who understands that a president ought to serve everyone, ought to care about everyone, and ought to hold the office with utmost respect. Nothing less is acceptable. We'll be right back.
Join me here on the 4th branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday. And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the 4th branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment.
I strongly encourage you to visit the People Branch YouTube channel in order to take a look at past video that we have. I do thank you for spending the time with me. I hope it was informative and enlightening. Do send us your comments, criticism, suggestions, and should you have any topic you would like us to talk about, to discuss, please do not hesitate to send us those as well. We will research it and we will debate it right here on the 4th branch. This is the place for common sense. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Fourth Branch Podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.
What if hip-hop never existed? Question. Do you think there'd be as many heads screaming out, stop snitching? I wonder. What if Adam and Eve ain't eat the fruit? What? You think we'd be able to see the truth? Or what if Albert Einstein ain't think of the nuke? Or Smith & Wesson ain't teach us to shoot? You think there'd be as many plays out there if there was no boost? Matter of fact, what if white man hung off a noose? Would it still be cool to say nigga? Or maybe we would make sick figures? Or would we wanna be crackers? And all the whites would be rappers? What if Martin Luther King survived? You think the New Orleans flood would've caused him to drop and die? I wonder what if and see what is. Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? If Christopher Wallace never got murked, how much money would Sean Carter be worth? What if Tupac never got hit with the flame? Would the game still have change filled with these lames? What if Jabari wasn't speeding down the street? What if the bullet Malcolm sent never hit Zeke? A black guy dropped off at a house instead of the stop? Or Ali never got bopped by the cops? What if the little homie Easy didn't die? Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? I don't know. What if?